the number one reason we hire bad people, not enough candidates. I'm going to show you how to create an unending stream of qualified candidates without spending obscene amounts of money. Welcome back, I'm Cort Brady. I scaled my last company from 0 to 80 employees, and I now spend my time helping other founders scale theirs. This is the content I wish I had when I was building Enjoy. To open the floodgates and get an unending list of highly qualified candidates applying at your company, there are only two things you really have to do. Number one, you gotta get crystal clear on exactly who it is that you want. These are all the illegal questions that you can't ask, but that you're thinking and that every business owner is thinking in the back of their mind. Who is this person? What's their age, gender, their interests, their capabilities? What do I need them to do? And once I figure that out, then I can start crafting the message to attract and recruit those exact people into my business. I need to find out where they hang out digitally and physically. To do that, I need to be clear on who they are. And number two, once you're crystal clear on exactly who you want applying at your company, you just need to build the engine to attract and retain them. Whether you're looking to hire a COO or a mid-level manager, a receptionist, or a technician that you need 20 of, this is the exact process. So let's jump into it. The first time I ever posted an opening, I only got 3 candidates that applied, and I started panicking. All of them were mediocre, but I had to hire one of them because I was drowning in the business. It was like I was playing baseball, and I was panicked because if I didn't swing, I was on a full count, and I was gonna strike out and we'd lose the game. So I took the mediocre hire. 2 months later, I let him go. And here's what I painfully figured out. You don't have to play by the rules of the game. You get to change the rules. That's what being an entrepreneur is all about. When you have an unending list of qualified candidates, you can take as many pitches as you want, and you can stand there patiently waiting, watching 10 bad pitches go past until you get that 80-mile-an-hour fastball right up the middle, and then you swing away knowing that you're gonna hit a home run because it's the perfect pitch. And that's what makes the difference. No more bad hires, no more panic hiring, just great candidates in every single seat. So here's step one. Get ultra clear on who it is that you're looking for. Figure out the ideal employee profile. Most entrepreneurs spend an ungodly amount of time dialing in their ideal customer profile, and rightfully so. But they spend almost no time dialing in who their ideal employee profile is. This makes absolutely no sense, because if you don't get the right people in the right seats, nothing else you do matters. So to do this, you ask all the same questions that you'd ask when you're dialing in your ideal customer profile. What are their interests? What are their hobbies? What are the skills that this person has that you're looking for? Where does this person hang out digitally? And where do they hang out physically? And the questions that are illegal to say out loud, but write them down on paper. What is the age, gender, background, the interests of this person? Now, just because you ask these questions, it doesn't mean you're only gonna hire people that fit this exact mold and that you're gonna profile only to this exact person. What it does mean is that you're gonna be crystal clear on exactly who you're looking for, and you're gonna find people on the fringes that surprise you. They'll be on the ends or even past the spectrum with their age, their gender, their different interests, their disposition, and those people will still be a great fit for your business. But you have to start by getting extremely specific on the person who would be your ideal employee. 2.5 years ago, I hired what I thought was my dream employee. 6 months ago, I let him go, and it was painful. Here's what happened. This guy, for me, checked every single box. He was smart, highly accomplished. He was making almost $500,000 a year. He's gonna take a discount to come work with me. He had been a COO at multiple companies that he had worked for and had taken them from where we were, millions in revenue, to over 100 million, where I wanted to get the company. The role I needed in our company was a COO, and this was our guy. Over the course of the interview, I spent 11 hours with this candidate. He was going to be my right-hand man, and so I couldn't miss. The further we got in the interview process, the more conversations I had with past bosses and the more coworkers of his that I talked to, I knew I had to have him on our team. He was going to be the change that I had been craving for almost 2 years at this point. At the end of the interview process, I was ready to pull the trigger and give him an offer. As we were detailing the offer, we agreed on every single item. So salary, bonuses, and even equity. It was amazing. And I was saying to myself, how did I get this lucky? I feel like it never goes this smooth. How are we here? And then we got to the very end, and there was this sticking point, which was we disagreed on what his title should be. At this point, I was looking for a COO, someone that would polish our processes and get us ready to scale so we could raise capital, buy other businesses, and roll them into ours. He had been a COO at much larger companies and said that it was important to him that he have the title of president. I was currently the CEO at the time, and presidents and CEOs are basically the same. It's the same role, and at that point I wasn't ready to step out. I had interviewed this guy to be the COO, not the CEO, and that's a very different skill set. So I took the weekend to think it over. I had the conversation with some mentors talking through it. I talked to partners and decided if the title is the only sticking point, this guy's too good to pass on, so let's do it. So I said, you've got it, and I gave him the role of president, and he started a week later. So fast forward 2 years, I had positioned this guy to be able to run almost our entire company. I had stepped out of any of the day-to-day operations, and he was effectively the CEO in every way, which was great because I wanted to pursue other ventures, other businesses, which I did, but there were some problems, and here they were. A COO and a CEO have vastly different skill sets. CEOs define and evangelize the mission, vision, values. They recruit, align, they coach the executive team members. The COO, they implement the CEO's vision. They create the processes, they choose the technology that you're going to use in the business. They lead, they manage, and they keep the operational team accountable. So this candidate was the right fit as the COO, but he wasn't the right fit as the CEO, and there were critical parts missing, and that's why we were struggling. So here I was with an incredible employee who had just put his heart and soul into making our company wildly successful, but yet lacked the skill set needed to be the CEO, and it was my fault. So wondering what I do, I couldn't demote him, that never works. So after weighing all my options, I decided to let him go. We gave him a large severance package, but it wasn't the long-term win that he was hoping for, and it wasn't the win that we were wanting. It was the hardest decision that I've ever made as a CEO, and it affected him, his family, and our business. And all of this would have been avoided, bringing it back full circle, if I had gotten crystal clear on exactly who it was that we were hiring for, and if I had stayed disciplined enough to stick to it. This is the most common mistake in this stage of the hiring process. You hire a rock star because they're brilliant, and you talk to all their references and they can't say enough good things about them, but they lack the specific skill set that would make them wildly successful in the role that you're hiring them for. And it's because we failed to properly build the scorecard and define what success is going to be, or lacked the discipline, even once we had built the scorecard, to stick with the scorecard we created. If you do this step properly, if you figure out who it is that we want, where do they hang out digitally, where do they hang out physically, what's the job to be done by this person, it's almost impossible to miss. But if you don't have a clear target of exactly who you want, the chances that you're going to get a rock star and that they're going to be successful are slim to none. So make sure you have these 3 things figured out when it comes to clarity. Number 1 is the job to be done. If you haven't heard about the concept of the job to be done, search Clayton Christensen and jobs to be done. He created it and coined that phrase, and it will explain something that will change how you think about business and how you operate forever. Essentially what it means is that every person or every product or service that we hire is hired to execute a specific job. If you're hiring for a sales role, you're not hiring someone to make calls. You don't care about them actually making calls. You're hiring them to generate revenue, and likely a very specific type of revenue with very specific gross margins. If you're hiring for an executive assistant, again, the job to be done is not to answer emails and book your meetings. That may be part of their role and responsibilities, but the job to be done is to give you X more hours in your day or your week, to reduce your stress by X%. The beauty is that if you can get clear on the job to be done, you may figure out that you actually don't need anyone at all. You don't have to hire. That's the best hire, is to not have to hire anyone. There might be a software or a process that can do that job for you. That's where you get a big win. Not needing people is always better than getting more hires. The second part of clarity is figuring out the outcomes needed by that person. So once you figure out the job to be done, Define what success looks like in that role. And you do that by wording it this way. You list all of the outcomes that you need and you create a metric for each one. You say, I need this metric to go from current state, so X, to Y by a certain time. As an example, for an operations role, it would look like I need gross margin to go from 54%, which is current state, to 59%, which is future state, by January 1st. Or another example, I need the customer satisfaction score, so the metric, to go from 80% current state to 85% future state by July 31st. This is what you're hiring against. These outcomes will give you clarity in what it is you stated for your job to be done. And then number 3 is skill set. Once you figure this out, then you can create the engine, but you have to be clear first. In the skill set, you're looking for all of the hard skills, all of the soft skills, and all the core values someone's going to need to excel in that position and in your company. So hard skills are going to be things like CRM or ERP knowledge, accounting knowledge, proficiencies in Six Sigma, being able to sell, whatever those hard skills are. The soft skills are going to be things like communicating with clients, having radical candor, being able to work with employees. And core values are going to be those things that they have to embody to be successful at your business. Very rarely does somebody change who they are at their core. So whether that's integrity, extreme ownership, humble, hungry, smart, whatever you guys have as your culture. If you can get this clarity portion right, you've already done 20% of the work in ensuring you get the right person in the right seat. If you skip this step or aren't disciplined in following it and sticking to it, you're gambling with someone else's livelihood and with your business. All right, so once you're crystal clear on exactly who you need, the next step is to get an unreasonable amount of qualified candidates banging at your company's door, applying for the positions that you're open for. You build this engine almost the exact same way as you built your marketing engine. There are just a couple of small tweaks. Step number 1 is to start with the low-hanging fruit. That is going to be referrals from the current A players in your organization, and only the A players, only the rock stars. Birds of a feather flock together, so you don't want to ask your low performers for referrals. You'll likely get more low performers. So to do this, you create an incentive plan for your employees to first post on their social media platforms and reach out to their network. I like to have 3 different ways to compensate my employees for the recruiting. Here's the first way. The first is a small bonus, so like $10 to $15 on a company lunch, and it gets everyone to post on their social media. They'll want to go to that lunch, they'll want to be part of the team. The post should match the scorecard that you've already created, because you want to attract that exact person. So once your people start posting, that's when you're going to have a few candidates start coming in. And if one of my employees ends up finding us somebody that ends up working for the business, I'll pay that referring employee, the one who posted on their social media and brought their friend in. And I do that on the first day that that new employee starts. And then I pay them again 3 months later if that new person's still working with us, another week's worth of that person's salary. The process of paying them day 1 and then also waiting 3 months to pay them the second portion incentivizes them to only find great candidates that they know will be a good fit for the company. Before I jump into step number 2, if this video has been helpful so far, leave a comment and I'll do my best to respond, or even create a video to answer your specific question. I push out content every single day, and this is how I pay it forward. So subscribe if you want more content on how to build your company. Step number 2, get referrals from new hires. Again, think of recruiting like marketing. New customers give great referrals. New hires give the best referrals. They just left their job or moved to a new state and just started working with you and your company. This is when they're on their highest high that they will ever be with your organization. They just got some new merch, they just met new people. Everything in your business is exciting to them and they want to tell their friends about it. This is the best time to get them to refer. The best time to do this is during their 1-month review, where you're able to give them tons of positive feedback on how they've done for the last 30 days, and then ask them who they know that would be a great fit to also come work at the company. And you do it with the same bonus and the same structure that you set up with your other team members to likely get this person to start working at your company. The number to shoot for here is to get at least 2 new referrals for every new employee. If you just did these 2 things, asked your current employees and then asked every new employee for referral, your headcount would grow perpetually. You'd have an unending list of A players because A players recruit recruit A players. However, if you're starting from scratch, then you move on to step 3. And this is where you go to one of my favorite places to recruit, which is an international recruiting firm. There are onshore and offshore recruiting firms. Both of them have a very similar model, which is that they'll charge you 20% of the employee's first year of compensation, which for an onshore employee is unbelievably expensive. So I've engaged a lot of onshore recruiters, but I've never pulled the trigger on one of their candidates because it was just an obscene amount of money. However, I think it is valuable to see that people are willing to pay a lot for A players. So if you can master this within your own business, you will be irreplaceable. So international recruiting firms will still sometimes charge 20%. However, the cost of the employee is 1/3 what you'd expect to pay in the US for the exact same skill set. The two factors that generally get people nervous about using international recruiting firms and using international employees is two things: integrity and culture. At the end of the day, an employee that's in your office or working from home or in a different state has the same likelihood of stealing from you as an international employee. So for sure, be smart, use precautions regardless of who it is that you're hiring, whether it's in office or remotely. As far as cultural fit, the world has become so globalized. So for someone to fit in the culture, they've been watching Netflix and Hulu, they understand you, and they've been taught English from an early age. It's been taught in parallel to their own native language. So all you need to do is add an English proficiency and an accent test as part of your vetting process. What I love about these international recruiting firms is that there's so many of them. They want your business. They're wanting to get a foot in the door, that your first time around, they'll charge you 10% instead of 20% of the salary of the person that you're hiring. Or they'll set up payment plans so that if that new hire quits after a month, you didn't just spend 10 or 20% of their salary to just have them quit. So you can pay them over time. I got one of them to agree to whatever the payment was going to that employee plus an extra $150 a month. And that was the perfect fit for us. Regardless, whatever the sticker price is never the actual price. So figure out how to negotiate it. Step 4, this is where I finally branch out to all the platforms you've heard of. This is where you start posting on LinkedIn, on Indeed, on forums where people hang out, including Facebook and Instagram. You have union boards where your technicians hang out, and college campuses where there's technical campuses and people graduating that have your skill set. People are often so hesitant to post on Indeed or LinkedIn because they're panicked that they're gonna get inundated with just tons and tons of resumes, and they're gonna have to sort through all of them, and it's gonna be hard to find the diamond in the rough. If that's you and you are at this point, you can check out my channel. I've created a video specifically on how to vet through these bad candidates quickly and how to make sure that you get the right candidate 92% of the time or more, that they are a rock star. And as a pro tip, when you're using these other sources, don't leave a post on for more than 2 weeks. If you post on Indeed, it's gonna get pushed way too far down into these job boards. So take it down after 2 weeks, rewrite it, and then post it again as a new posting. If you lead people, 50% of your job is recruiting. You should always be recruiting. You're always hiring, even when you're full. There's always room for an A player or a rock star on your company. Can you imagine your sales team saying, hey, we're full on business, stop sales? Recruiting trumps new revenue because your people drive not just revenue, but everything in your business. This is the process. We fill all our roles with rock stars in under 10 days or less, with no or minimal spend once that flywheel is going. So once it's going, don't turn it off, just keep building. If you wanna know how to vet your candidates so you avoid bad hires and get rock stars 93% of the time or more, check out my channel. I built videos specifically to help you scale.